Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and it is Tuesday, July 7th. So, a little bit of, I don't know what you want to call it today, maybe dip day. Just felt like the market was kind of heavy all day today. A couple of things that we noticed early on was, the VIX started to grind higher. Actually, it wasn't so much the VIX, but I was kind of noticing what was going on this morning with the VXN. If you're not familiar with that index, it's the VIX for the Qs. So remember the VIX. I know people like to overcomplicate the VIX, and they call it this and they call it that and they call it the fear index. All the VIX does is measure short-term implied volatility in options in short-term options, right? So just 30 days out. And that's just in the S&P. That's all the VIX is. I know people like to put so much meaning behind the VIX and so forth, but that's all it does is just measure implied volatility of short-term S&P options. So if you want to know what's going on with the Qs or with IWM, you can't really look at the VIX. It's not going to give you any of those answers. It's just the S&P 500. So if you look at VXN, that was actually showing it was doing something a little bit different today. When the VIX was going down, the VXN was actually going up and finished up about 5% on the day, which was the same as the VIX, because the VIX kind of caught up there at the end of the day, but just showed a little bit of volatility in the Qs. And if we take a step back and look at where the Qs are. If you follow the daily sentiment index, I believe it was a 93 coming into today. So, the I don't think that you really have to need some type of metric to kind of measure the Qs. You could basically just kind of look at what they've done recently, and you know that they're, as I like to refer to it, as cooked. Right? They've gone up a lot. So would I be surprised if we get a little bit more volatility to the downside? No. And I think that would kind of cool off some of those levels. And personally, that's what I'm kind of looking for from this market in the next couple of days is for just a little bit of digestion of these recent gains in the Qs and maybe some rotation. I think we saw a little bit of that today, and I'll go over some of those sectors and so forth. So again, I just think that sentiment measure is really hot for the Qs. There's nothing wrong with the fact that they did get up to 93. It just shows that they've got a lot of strength with them, and I would rather see these things kind of come in a little bit. Just to take a little bit of a breather so that they don't get way overheated. Then sometimes when things get super overheated, it's kind of the old, stairs up or escalator up and then elevator down. So, that's kind of why I'm always watching for that. Also, I noticed some other things. We'll get into bonds in just a second, but if we look at the S&P levels, we're kind of splitting hairs here a little bit. But I did notice on the 5 minute, we talked about two of these levels yesterday morning in S&P. One was taken out. If I can find this here in S&P, let's see. Do I have the right time frame up here? Yeah, I should. I believe that's as far as we went today. Oh, sorry. Right here is where we got to. All right, which was after the close yesterday. So nailed that to a T. Now there's also one of these on the 1 hour, and I tweeted. I did not tweet this one out. The levels are so close. This is 3283, and then there's also one on the 1 hour too, which we did not get to that one. Interesting that we did fall into value for the week, right? We spent the overnight session on Sunday night going into Monday morning, rally, and we started the week inside value, and we are now back inside value now. So we did start there, and we're now back inside. So we'll see what this gets, but all in all, like I'm okay for the market cooling off a little bit. I did get caught in a couple positions today, as I've been mentioning. I've been taking out, taking off more positions, increasing my cash balance, but I'm still participating. And today, like I made like a stupid mistake in Zillow today. And what else? I had a couple day trades start to trigger and then kind of failed. I did that in SE, I did that in Micron today, and which negated a couple of my really good trades. So sometimes it's just how the day goes, but not a big deal there. But again, I'm always fully transparent so that you could see, my trades. Right, so I put on. And I made some money right off the bat today. I had a nice trade in Fastly, but I was in and out of stuff really quick this morning, like in the first 10, 15 minutes. I just thought, I didn't want to mess to see if we were going to have a trending day today. This was more of like just quick scalp trades this morning. GDXJ, which was a trade that I was long coming into today, I had a target up at 50.60, got it. Even though I think we're going to look at these charts in just a second, but again, I like to go over these. I started a swing, just a starter in this. Managed to take 2 profit targets in this thing today, so nice. Again, that's nice to see that because again, at the end of the day, the market sold off a little bit. Here's where I did a bad trade here, 115.77. If we want to look at this, I know I'm jumping around in this video. Sorry about that. But almost got back outside of value here a couple times on the 1 hour bars, which of course take a long time to close. But it looked like we were going to get above here, and then kind of failed. But that's a name that I'll watch for tomorrow because I love to buy the dip in this name in C Limited. And it is coming into support. Just didn't line up perfectly. For a trigger, but a very strong name, and that's a name that I like to kind of routinely get involved in on dips. I think I got involved in it back here too. So that one, and then we did see some call buying in Micron. It's just the market was a little bit too weak, and so again, I always like to review the bad trades. So this looked like this was a good stop out. There's a VPOC down here at 48.77. There was also one taken out here. I think a little bit higher, but now I don't see it. And then on the 1 hour, I was trading versus support, and support did not hold. So no reason to be in that trade any longer. So again, that's the bad trades. I always go over the bad first. Again, you should always be worried about your risk before your profits. VRTX, where did this thing close today? 300. So let's see if the breakout is intact. I did take a target in this thing. Would have been nice if this thing closed close to the highs, but overall, still pretty good. Let's see where XBI closed. Biotechs. Off the highs, but overall, still a nice bullish engulfing candle. So, again, nothing wrong with that at all. Not perfect, but nothing wrong with it. So, S&P, I did draw a couple, besides falling into that 1 hour value area that I mentioned. I also drew this trend line in here yesterday. I just noticed that we haven't been able to make a higher high yet. So far this is a lower high. So we'll have to see how this develops. We have not broken back into the value area for the month. So we'll see if that holds. That's 30 easy leveled for you to watch for tomorrow is 31.30 and a half. So we'll see how that goes tomorrow. In a perfect world, how would I like this to develop for tomorrow? I hope we open up red, and then that might set up some dip buying for tomorrow. But we'll see. Usually when we close on the lows, I usually like to be a little bit more conservative. But this market, how these overnight moves have been going, right? They've been much, much stronger there. So let's talk about a couple other moves. If you go back to this, let's talk about sectors first, and I'll talk about the Tribeca Trade Group portfolio. I have to remember to talk about that. So consumer staples kind of looking a little bit interesting here. I wouldn't mind a rotation. Obviously, Walmart had some news about delivery and so forth, or whatever they're doing, or they're having some type of competing program with Amazon. To that, I'd say good luck. but this name is cheap, right? And that's what kind of draws people to it. But there's a number of other charts in this consumer staples space that are starting to look somewhat interesting. Procter and Gamble, Pepsi is pretty coiled up here. I would pay attention to this name. Would I buy it right here? No, but I would maybe set an alert and see if we can kind of break this thing because I don't want to just sit in a position. And you could see it did not close above value. I'm going to set an alert right now at basically one close to the day's highs in Pepsi. Again, that's half of what this is. What we're doing is doing preparation. I set a lot of alerts, and if they don't trigger, they don't trigger. I don't take the trade. Sometimes it's better to be setting up alerts and doing some type of work like this where you're not always putting on every single trade, but you are looking and you're stalking, trade. So 134.50 is where I just put an alert on Pepsi. Notice it's had some difficulty once it gets up to this level, so it failed again here, but I'll watch it because again, if there is a sector rotation, right? The first thing first is I want to have the idea about it. I think where some traders you know, have some faults is they're using all their personal judgment. It's fine to use some personal judgment, like, hey, I think the staples are kind of getting interesting, but I want to let the price action confirm that. Right? I think what happens is a lot of traders they have ideas and then they just go with the ideas without thinking that their judgment is going to be better than some other trader. Um, it's good to have the ideas and anticipate, but you got to wait for the moves to actually take place, right? I think that's the difference, and that's a little bit of one of our reasons for having some edge is that we've got good ideas, but we're also waiting for the signal to develop, right? And not making sure that we're still objective in watching price. So again, big difference there than just saying, "Hey, this is going to happen. I know it's going to happen, and I'm confident." Right? That's how people get run over. Let's talk a little bit about gold and so some different areas of the market. My screen just went blank. There we go. Gold out to 52-week high today. It did finally took out this virgin point of control. So let's see how this handles this. There is another one up here too, but we've been waiting for that to be taken out. There's been a lot of investment. I've talked about that in the ETF fund flow report that I put together every day. There's been some decent inflows going into both GLD and IAU. You can follow that on my Twitter feed. I tweet that out around like 7:45 every morning. But there has been some gold inflows, and I like how these charts are looking. So I did take off this. I was long GDXJ coming into the day, and this virgin point of control was taken out. That was my target. So now I can kind of set up some single stocks. So this gold looks interesting to me. This KL also, remember this is a name that you may not have seen for a while. This was like the darling of the gold miners about a year, 2 years ago, and then just kind of fell apart, went all the way down to $18. So it does look like you've got a reverse head and shoulders going on here, left shoulder, head, right shoulders, and you got the neckline. So it looks like it's trying to get through the neckline. If we look at the weekly chart, you will have some resistance up here at 47, but that's still a nice move for a gold miner. By the way, look at that VPOC tag down there. Perfect. Again, another example of using virgin point of controls, just like on that 5-minute S&P. All right, so that's a couple things, and then of course bonds. So something a little bit different today. If we look at the long bonds, let's look at the long bond future because this is different than TLT, different duration. But first of all, I've been kind of waiting for this to materialize. Maybe a false breakdown here, grinding higher. Let's see what it looks like. So definite uptrend on the weekly, and first real break of value in a while. This has gone sideways basically since March, right? Failure here, top of value back in April, failure here, top of value May, failure here again. Again, here's the false breakdown, did get back into value. So really the first like green bar above value. And I did buy a little bit of TLT at the end of the day. Why not? There's nothing wrong with that. And again, I'm following price action. And we'll see, if bonds want to go, if some money wants to flow back into bonds. And again, to me, I like when things kind of make a little bit of sense because so many growth names have gone up so much. Again, I'm not saying it's like game over for growth or anything like that, but I would assume that these groups need to consolidate a little bit, right? We talked about Shopify yesterday. They came in and they bought the dip in Shop again, but the software group, this thing comes in again, it's going to get bought again. But I would love it if this group, and I'm sure a lot of people are probably in the same boat as me, so I'm being prudent here. I think so many names like Square too. So what I did today as well is I took some profits, right? So I managed two portfolios. I talk about this all the time, but I managed two portfolios at the Tribeca Trade Group. One is a trading account, which I'm well over, up 100% for the year on my trading account, and then I also manage, and in the trading account I trade both options and stocks, day trade, and I'm mostly a swing trader. And then in the tactical portfolio, this is a trend following cash portfolio, and basically what I did was I took some profits today. Again, I didn't take any of these names out. I just took some targets. I just took some targets in Amazon, Tesla. These are names that we've made some decent money. So I reduced the weight. So still in the portfolio. And by the way, Tesla held up well today too. So maybe I'm jumping the gun a little bit, saying that there should be some that we might see a little bit more rotation. I also took some profits in JD. Funny today, like everybody talking about the China names yesterday. We talked about sometimes when they start talking about the moves in China that we've been seeing for the last 2 months. When they finally talk about them on financial media, sometimes the trade's over for a little bit. So again, and I try to point these things out. There was a lot of call buying yesterday in FXI. What did FXI do today after all that call buying? Down 2.8%. What about Baidu? They went crazy going after Baidu calls yesterday. So the better that you can kind of learn from this stuff to know that the call buying isn't always going to be correct. Baidu was down 3.8% today after all kinds of call buying in this name. So again, the term smart money gets thrown around a lot, and I don't particularly like that. I don't particularly think option call buying is smart money. Sometimes it works when everything is going up. Yes, the call activity will work. But it's not. So I like to show you guys examples of this stuff, but all kinds of aggressive calls that went up yesterday on the highs in Baidu, and the stock's up 3.8%. Is it done? Is the stock done? No, but I'm just showing you a lot of times you can get in much better than what you see on the tape, right? And there's a bunch of names that saw call buying yesterday that it didn't work today. But why? Why didn't it work today? Because the market was kind of moved down a little bit. It doesn't really matter. Right? Everybody thinks, oh, the call buying works. Well, that's because the whole market's gone. Anyway, so I just try to illustrate this for you guys so that you don't get tricked, because I think a lot of people on Twitter and on financial media, they play games. It's calling things smart money and so forth. There's plenty of trades that don't work in options. All you have to do is trade options for like a year or two and follow option activity, and that most of it's basically 50-50. Maybe there's a little bit more edge than that, but if you follow straight up option activity without a system, you know, you're not gonna end up, unless the overall market just continues to trend higher, you'll do okay. But if it's a choppy market, just straight up following option activity, not going to work for you in terms of outsized profits. So I'll be the first to say that. So yeah, and then what I did as well is I did throw in BABA in this portfolio. It's something that I've wanted to do for a while. So I went ahead and did that today, and then I did add a couple. I added three different kind of more defensive positions. I added a couple gold miners, and I also added TLT in here as well. So taking some profits in some things and trying to, mixing it up a little bit. I think this is a good place to kind of reshuffle. Oh, and then I also put in PALL too. Sorry, I forgot to highlight. Did I highlight that? I did highlight that. So again, putting in a little bit more materials and some defensive materials in here as well. All right, guys, so that's it. Again, take things one day at a time. And try if the market does move down a little bit. If the Qs take a little bit more profit, if there's a little bit more profit taking, which again I would be kind of excited about. Just don't give back your profits, right, from the last few days. If you've had a really nice last few days, the goal is to not give it all back into a little bit of choppy market as the VIX closed right around the high today. Let's see what this looks like. By the way, there has been some inflows into some of the VIX ETNs like UVXY, which is a piece of junk product, but there was some inflows into this and a little bit of call buying in there too. Smaller stuff, but again, so you could see the volume kind of go up here a little bit in this type of stuff. So, maybe somebody's looking for some short-term volatility to kind of creep back through the market. Again, nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. All right. So, thanks for watching the video, guys. Have a great night, and I'll see you tomorrow.